live.
I'm live. No, not yet. Don't do that to me. I got to turn this phone off.
We can edit it though, so no worries.
Where the hell do you get the damn thing? I turn it off.
Pick one.
Ready?
Nerve-wracking.
No. I think you'll find it an easy interview.
Okay.
I really, really do.
Okay.
Am I ready? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition. Actually, it's the reincarnation number 3 of a show called Hello Central, coming to you here on Front Street from Nome, Alaska, 100 miles in the Bering Strait, and this is where it's happening. And my name is Richard Beneville, and next to me is Denise Michels, our mayor, Your Honor, the mayor. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you for the invitation.
I can't think of anybody I'd rather have on the show because you can I've been off the air for about 4.5 years because of the stupidity, and then, well, actually, it was half and half. Half of it was lazy. In any case, when I'm back on, and I can't think of anybody I'd rather have help me try to fill in the 4 years since the show went off the air and where we are today, because some really incredible things have happened. The history of the show is a simple one. I lived up in Barrow. I moved up there in 1982. In about 1984, I started a radio show on KBRW, which is the public radio up in Barrow. And I called it Hello Central. And it was primarily music. I played a lot of opera, did a lot of show tunes, a lot of show tunes, and it was just everything. And kind of yada, yakety, yakety, yakety. So when I moved to Nome in 1988, show, and I said, well, let's do it. So we went on the air with that. And it was on the air for 6 or 7 years, I don't know, for a while. And then we have this hiatus that we've just had. But I'm back on the air, and I'm so excited.
With new technology.
With new technology, because though my audience, ladies and gentlemen, is you, the people of Nome, Alaska, there is a larger audience. There is a larger audience. And there's a focus that's been happening. It's gotten stronger and stronger over the last number of years. And we're going to talk over the next several months of a lot of different aspects of that focus here on Nome, because some of them are very exciting. Some of them are not so exciting, and some of them are incredibly interesting and necessary. You know, we are a big area. Nome is a large town of 3,500 in what, an area? What's the population of the Seward Peninsula?
We're 3,600, and the population is over 9,000.
On the peninsula?
Yes.
Wow. Wow. 15 villages, 16 villages in the area?
16.
Yeah, 16 areas. So we've got this area that's probably the size of Montana or something.
West Virginia.
West Virginia. Isn't there a song, something about West Virginia? John Denver sang it. I left my heart in West Virginia. No, that's San Francisco. But, so the time I've been off the air has been the time that Your Honor, Mayor Michels has been mayor of Nome. This is your second term, third term.
This is my 5th term, so it's
no way.
6th term. I'm sorry, 6th term. It's every 2 years.
You've been mayor for 12 years?
This is my 11th year. I'm starting my 11th.
Man, I am getting old. My synapses are not working like they used to. Maybe I have been off the air longer than you thought. Mitch Erickson is. Yeah, you sure have. Wow.
It's great.
And you've done so well.
Thank you. The community's done well.
Yeah, but you know, you need somebody at the rudder.
That would be the community.
That would be, yeah, but you know,
they're the driving force on
well, but don't sell yourself short, Your Honor. I voted for you every time, and you do a good job.
Thank you.
And one of the things, there's several areas that I kind of want to touch on.
Sure.
2012. We
Yes.
may go back further, but 2012, we had that interesting situation that captured the media.
The world.
For several weeks.
Yes.
And that was the Rendra, the Russian tanker escorted by the Coast Guard cutter Healy,
Yes.
to bring fuel to Nome through 300 miles of ice.
Yes.
How that came to be is a long, involved story, but why they had to do that through the ice. Normally, our fuel and things are delivered in the summer. And for reasons that are many, it didn't happen.
Right.
And there was a portion of the fuel that we needed that we were getting flat out of.
Right.
That was for emergency vehicles.
We figured by March or April, if the fuel wasn't here, they would have had to start flying it in, which would have increased the price almost to $9-10 a gallon.
$9-10 a gallon.
So in March and April, we're still frozen, and so that was not an option.
Because we are on paper, according to the Coast Guard, this is many, many years ago, an icebound port. We're directly, for those of you who aren't here, we're directly on the Bering Sea. Right out the window here is the Bering Sea. We're icebound on the Coast Guard says from June 1st to October 1st, I think. Which is very different
lately
now.
It's been the outer cells are usually free of ice until end of November, December.
That's true.
But in 2012, we had a unusually very cold winter, a cold snap, below zero.
We live in this part of the world where sometimes, I'm out on the Front Street, because we're also the end of Iditarod. I'll be out on Front Street at 20 below zero, talking to clients from Ohio about climate change and global warming, and they're looking at me as if to say, 20 below is warm. Hello, Central.
What's happening?
From your point of view as mayor, because there was a lot, the city had to do to coordinate. You had the Russian entity, the company, plus the protocols of government, border. You had the Coast Guard, the federal government. We had the state, and we had you and us, the locals, right?
Industry.
From the point of view of a mayor and going to AML, Alaska Municipal League, and all of that, was that for us a success? How was that? How was that viewed?
I believe it was a success because, one, it showed that a small community like the city of Nome has a can-do attitude. We reached out to our resources. We established protocol. The Coast Guard had and DEC had a lot of assets and resources in their back pocket that we could use with the forward operating location at City Hall. It also improved international relations with the Russian government, with it was a success.
It was a huge, and I think it was a success in this town for the people.
Yes.
Because I work at the school in the winter. I'm director of community schools, so I provide after-school activities to the kids, and done it for 20 years.
And you do a good job, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. But the kids cooked cookies for the crews, because just out on the other side of our port, and in the winter we don't see boats, period, ships. We don't see them. And here's this big tanker and this big Coast Guard cutter parked offshore with and it was fabulous. Yeah. But the Russians couldn't get off.
No, Customs and Border, you require to have the proper documentation. They could get off only to walk the fuel line, to inspect the fuel line up to the header, but they couldn't go beyond that, which was a shame because we would have liked to thank them.
Yes, exactly, because they were as much a part of this thing. I remarked in it, at the time, and I remember, I think, saying to you, when we were down at the Mini for something, and I brought some cookies that the kids had, the cookies were for the boat crews, but the Russians couldn't come, so they packed up half the cookies and they got delivered out to the boat. Yes. The kids also, or the townies, always Yano Kralik, who wanted to have a soccer game. If they can't get off the ship, can they get on the ice? Do a soccer game. That didn't pass either. But it was a wonderful event. I mean, I'm sorry we had to do it. It was very expensive. I can't imagine what that effort must have cost.
I haven't seen. I haven't done a FOIA on that.
I don't know. I don't know. Does the Coast Guard come back and does the Coast Guard come out and say, okay, here's a bill for a gazillion billion?
The issue that we wanted to stress was that the Coast Guard provides ice-breaking service in the Great Lakes for commerce to happen, and there should be no reason why we, the state of Alaska, can't have that same service that the rest of the lower 48 has.
Which leads me to a kind of a discussion about why what you said is so critically important. As we look at a map here, there's great change going on in the North. Great change. And depending on your point of view, a lot of it is there's a lot of opportunity. It's kind of scary.
A lot of risk.
A lot of risk. There's cultural, cultural concerns and everything. But in any case, what is happening is that the ice is thinner. Although this year, I am told, the ice line is lower than it's been in many, many, many years. But it's not 4-foot ice. It's like 2-foot ice.
Right.
It's very thin. So it's a lot more plasmic. The Bering Straits is open to traffic more, longer. And the way the world works and commerce works, there are resources.
Gas and oil.
Gas and oil and minerals. We have no idea. Remember years and years ago, the Russians went with a submarine and were dropping plaques, bronze plaques on the mountain ranges. And this is a Russian mountain range. Well, boys, don't
symbolic. It was symbolic.
Symbolic. But we have, we have this geography, which is as much of a resource for Alaska as our oil.
Yep.
Because it was important during the Cold War. That's Russia. And for those of you who might be old enough to remember the Cold War, which I'm sure you don't.
But I have good history on it.
The history on it. This was the international date line was like the Berlin Wall.
Closed curtain.
They called it, there was an ice wall. And it was 1989 that began to change. And that's a fabulous story about one of our citizens, Jim Stimple, and Bernadette Albana Stimple. And he sent weather balloons off the end of the pier over to Russia. And attached to the weather balloons were packets with needles and trading beads and all of these things that, because the St. Lawrence Island people and their families in Russia used to go back and forth. And then for 50 some odd years, they couldn't because of the politics.
Right.
And they made it a whole lot easier to get back and forth. So I remember 1989, families that hadn't seen them in years. Would you have any family over there extended?
I haven't researched that. We may have. My mom's from Shishmaref and my grandma lived in Wales, and so, which is close to Diomede, and I remember hearing stories of them trading back then, so could be a possibility.
But what is happening, get back to this climate change thing is incredibly important, and it has a huge bearing, and it's becoming more and more apparent that it might be even bigger than we ever thought, is the placement of a port that the Coast Guard can use during this extended period of the Bering Sea being accessible. And proper way to say it.
A deep draft Arctic port, which would be a national, solve national security and our other international interests that we have as an Arctic nation. Which
goes back to the render and the thing, because you had to, the relationship between Russia and the United States has been an interesting one since 1989. And right now we seem to be a little more stressed and strained than we were, say, during perestroika and all of that 20 years ago now, more than 20 years, I guess. Being in the tourism business, and I have a tour company in the summer, being in the tourism business, that opening of Russia, these things like the render, that helped a great deal, as you said, to ease some of these tensions that don't come so much from Moscow, from Providenia, our Russian sister city, or Nome, or Alaska, but they come from Moscow and they come from Washington.
Right.
And they kind of talk, and I don't want to use the word too realistically, but fight with, they make their political points over our heads, and we're here.
Right.
We're there.
Right.
And this tremendous change is happening. You connect. You go to the Coast Guard quite often, and you've spoken in front of them many times. You've gone to Washington.
Yes.
And where do we stand? I said I wouldn't ask you a leading question.
This is a U.S. Corps of Engineers, State of Alaska study of the deep draft port system, which identifies Nome and Port Clarence. So it's a system.
Right.
The issue is the cost-benefit ratio analysis that the Corps of Engineers has to identify, that it has to have at least a 1-to-1 or more to for economic reasons.
What do you mean?
The ratio, the cost-benefit ratio,
Oh.
it has to be at least 1-to-1 or more. The beauty of it is it ties us together, the system, both Port Clarence and Nome, and makes the Seward Peninsula a very, very ideal place to put a deep draft port system.
Because they've looked at Barrow and Kotzebue and another Cape something that I'm not.
Yes, they all the way
north.
from north of Dutch all the way to
Right.
Barrow, and the short list came down from, I think there's like 15 sites. The short list came down to Nome and Port Clarence.
So exciting.
Yes, it is.
It's so exciting. It's exciting, and it can be a little scary.
Yes.
It can be a little, the future, and I'm a big guy in the future. You know, bring it on.
Yeah.
Some people, you know, are a little reticent of it.
I think that what we also need to look at and think of is that the shipping's going to happen no matter what. So we need to be proactive instead of reactive. That having a deep draft port system here will allow industry and Coast Guard to place assets here for environmental response, enforcement, spill response, and then also to protect our subsistence way of life. We're very dependent on the ocean for our resources, especially our villages in the Bering Straits region. So not having something in place is riskier than having to go forward and put something here in the Bering Straits region.
Right.
We're human. Something's going to happen.
Something is going to happen.
So we bear the most risk.
Which is why the render and that whole thing, sad though it may have been inexpensive, because it worked.
Yes.
And we were able to do it, not in April or July, but in February.
January.
January, even worse.
Yeah.
And it's cold, and that was a cold winter.
Yes.
You know, I think about this past winter we're enjoying now. It is February, 26th or something?
Yeah, it's 30 degrees
And it is
outside.
30 some odd degrees. It might even be above freezing now. Minneapolis. I think they got blizzard number 7.
Yeah, that's
Big storms they've had all the way across the Northeast and the Midwest and everything. And we're up here, the Banana Republic. I called my brother.
warming up.
I called my nephew Michael. I'm like her several days. It was 51 degrees in Nome.
Yes.
9 degrees in New York City.
January 27th.
Ba-dum-bum.
Yeah.
But back to the Coast Guard. One of the reasons, and some of them, I'm sure all of you know this, but just to reiterate again, one of the reasons this is all so important, and the geography is important, because as the ocean becomes more accessible, there's more traffic. I think it's up 400%. It's huge.
Yes. The Port of Nome, we've been we keep statistics on our docks. In 1990, there was 30. Last year, we had 449 dockings in the Port of Nome, and we had 150 vessels waiting to come in. Of those 150 vessels, 40 of them, their drafts were too deep, so they either had to shuttle.
Right. Lighter them in.
Yeah.
So today, if you had a problem up here, and the Coast Guard had to, and we needed the Coast Guard to respond, whatever, and as you said, we're human, things will happen. You know, it's not a perfect world. Right now, the nearest is Kodiak.
Yes.
And that is like a 3-day, how long a sail is it?
Almost a couple days.
It's a couple of days
definitely a
and
couple
1,000 so miles through, like I said, 300 miles of ice. Weak though it may be, it's still there. And yet, this is where I get ticked off. And I know you were among others that went to one of the subcommittees in Washington, and, you know, because they cut the number of icebreakers. You have this huge ocean that is the Bering Strait's so critical just from a strategic point of view. You mentioned national security. It's incredibly, maybe even more so than it was during the Cold War. Maybe more so.
The only way to get in and out of the Arctic from the Pacific Ocean is through the Bering Strait.
And to go from, and I think it will happen, to go across from Northern Europe using Northwest Passage, or even further north of Northwest Passage and coming around the Arctic ice pack, and then down. If you can go from Hamburg to Seoul, you can save. You have to go around before the Panama Canal. You had to go around South America.
Right. There were over the Northern Sea Route. The Russian government had 200 applications last year for escort services using the Northern Sea Route. So that has seen an increase. Several years ago it was 4, then it was 34, 46, and so every year there is more and more industry using the Northern Sea Route because it saves them money and time.
That's right. And it's becoming commerce. So much of it for many years was, science, Coast Guard going up and pleasure craft. We get a phenomenal number of pleasure craft and cruise ships. We've got a cruise ship gang. Check it out. Buy a ticket, get on the Hanseatic or the Bremen. We get adventure-sized cruise ships in town. And this year we're getting another ship, French ship. So we're going to have 6 or 7 sailings. I'll get to tourism in a minute. But this increase in what's happening, and Russia, if I remember, I heard it correctly on the news. This is a couple of 3 months ago. Their largest Arctic transport system announced that they will soon go to year-round, going through the strait.
Right.
That's
the Russian government's made resource extraction one of their priorities, and they're investing in Arctic infrastructure. They're establishing bases and looking at different port systems. Canada is also looking at a facility in their high north. And so this is really good news that the Corps of Engineers in the state of Alaska are looking at a port system here in the state of Alaska. It's needed.
Well, how far are we from the Bering Straits? Wales is what, 100 miles from here, maybe? Just not even?
No, I'm sorry, I can't.
It's
I don't. An hour, 45-minute flight. Yeah.
You got right here at the very edge of the Bering Strait, right there. You got Big and Little Diomede right in the middle, straddling the international date line, and Wales right here is looking down the gunnels. And I think Wales from Nome is about 70 miles to Teller.
Right.
So it's probably another 30 or 40 by air over to Wales. So you've got this, and the traffic is now beginning to go both ways. Cruise ships, and actually the Hanseatic and the Bremen belong to a German ship company called Hapag-Lloyd. And they've been coming here for 20-some odd years, when you couldn't always get through the Northwest Passage. And I remember once they got stuck up north. I don't remember the name of where it was. Not Nunavut, that's down south. Where is it? It's not Osavik, that's the University of Inuvik. Yeah. Inuvik, I think. And they had to bus everybody
Canada.
off the ship. Yeah, in Canada.
Okay.
In northern Canada. And the ship couldn't go through the Bering Strait, to go through the back.
Northwest
They
Passage.
wanted Northwest Passage to the Atlantic. So they got everybody off, and they had to, get them back home. But that has not happened in a long, long time. We get yachts. We get sailing yachts. People sail through that thing.
Last year or 2 years ago, there was a Russian film crew, a French film crew that completed the.
Yes.
Yeah, and they were documenting climate change. So there's a lot of international interest.
Cut with that note, how long ago it was. Arlo Hannigan kind of hitchhiked a ride with some Polish guys that had sailed through the Northwest Passage, and he kind of jumped on board and was going to help them out for this voyage south, and he ended up in Colombia or someplace, down in South America. But what a voyage it was, I guess. And we got the, what's his name? He's been all over Alaska. The yacht, the Alan, not the Google, the Apple guy, Steve.
Paul
Allen.
His yacht.
In his 400-foot.
Beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Yes.
Talk about, and it's got sexy lighting. When they're doing, and when he does like the university kids on board, and he helps out that, he's got a whole different lighting system than when he's on the yacht himself or using it for his friends. And I've seen it in Juneau with these really sexy blue lights and all of this real. But I've seen it up here. Of course, we don't see it at night very often because it's summertime, and it's a lot more, academic.
Right.
The crowd. another aspect of this, and we kind of talked a little bit about it, and it's always a concern at the local level, certainly, at the state level, and the more we talk about it, the more they know there's a voice over here, and the cost of energy in Western Alaska is unreal. And Nome's a little bit better off than, say, Kotzebue or something like that. Kotzebue pays $8 a gallon for gas, I think. It's a lot. We pay $6.10. It's more expensive than gasoline for your car, and diesel's more expensive. So for years we've been talking about, and the Nome Chamber and the city have been involved, and let's kind of go to the things we've done proactively for, and we have a wonderful city-owned, I guess it's city-owned, Nome Joint Utilities. John Hanlon's the president. And how far is Banner, what is the Banner Mountain, whatever it's a mountain?
Yep, Banner Hill.
Is it Banner Hill? What, 3 miles from here?
Where the wind farm is located?
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have 18 smaller turbines and the 2 biggies.
Yes.
The 2 biggies can produce more energy, more electricity, I think, than the 18, if I'm not mistaken.
That would have to be a John Handlin.
Yeah.
But we, realizing the council, the community, anything that we can do to cut the price of energy for our residents and businesses. We had several years ago, I think Mitch was pretty active in this. Back then it was called Mineral Management Service, had identified some gas pockets out in the Norton Sound. Well, we went further on that, and we had the state of Alaska look at the geology, and realizing those gas pockets were probably not big enough to even support a local, just to use for locally. So at least we were able to check that off the list. And so the next one we started looking at is Pilgrim Hot Springs geothermal. The hope was to have at least 5 megawatts. With the current studies going on, it's looking like somewhere around 2. Nome Joint Utility is working with the developer for a possible power purchase agreement to be brought forth to the council to look at. And so we're very excited that the community, the businesses here, all, like the chamber, put money in to move that forward to see the viability of it.
So cool.
It's exciting.
What's his name? Not Al Adams. Who's the guy from Kotzebue, our representative in Washington? Al Adams. No, Don, what's his name? Don Young.
Yes.
No, yeah, Don Young.
Yes.
And I remember at a Chamber of Commerce convention, and they had, at the time, Ted Stevens was still alive, so they had Ted Stevens, they had Lisa Murkowski, and Don they were the panel. And there were lots of questions coming back and forth. And I was asking about, about energy, and I had posed the group a question about energy and how do you see it, and as far as rural Alaska and all that. And they were giving back something. And Don came in, and I thought it was a great answer. I've quoted it a number of times. He said, we got enough money in Alaska that Alaska shouldn't always sit around and wait for the feds.
Yep.
We shouldn't do that.
Right.
We've got, we can do it ourselves.
Right. Senator Olson was was the one that put in the $300,000 for the city of Nome to provide that to the university for the match for the it was a Department of Energy grant that went to another community, and the geothermal portion of within their community didn't work out, and so we had to work with Lisa Murkowski's office to have that DOE funding come from the other community to Nome, and we did send them a really nice thank you letter for allowing us to do that. So there was both Fed, state, local, and business industry very interested in making this move forward.
If we don't work together, it isn't going to happen.
Right.
It isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And something happening, I tell this to the kids out at NACTech, and I went to the youth facility and talked with the kids there the night before last. And I look at these kids, and they're from all of the villages, and they come in, and out at NACTech, they're looking for ideas for work and exposure to, a little more urban setting, Nome, and all the good and the bad that has, but it's, it's life. And I keep reminding them, keep looking north. That's
That's the next economic hotspot.
well, it is for Alaska, and for that's their legacy too.
Mm-hmm.
They, pardon me, may not agree with absolutely everything that's happened, but even if they don't, in order to have a voice,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be involved. And I'm always telling you, get involved. You don't have to run for office. Just know about it.
Right.
People come and ask you about it. Trust me.
Mm-hmm.
If my new thing on tourism is if people can get there, they'll go.
Yes.
You had
Exactly.
at this period, if they can get there, they'll go. And I still believe that the Russian thing will open up eventually.
That'd be nice.
You have National Park Service with their agreement with the Russians in Varengia Park,
Mm-hmm.
all of that, and there are other cultural agreements and all of these things.
The
But
visa-free program, they're
Oh,
still
yeah.
trying to
they do.
work on that to establish it. I know they have 3 commissioners, and I believe Vera Metcalf is one of the commissioners.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
so-
That's right.
Yeah.
You're right. What is she on? What is that called? That group?
I just know it's part of the visa-free program with the federal government. So,
And speaking of federal governments,
mhm.
hello, Central. And we were talking about energy and geography and all of that.
Mhm.
Another thing about geography, and we were talking about the opening of the Arctic,
Mhm.
and that can be, like I said, a lot of scary stuff. And this is to your credit too, Your Honor. Absolutely your credit, a great deal of this. Between you and folks like you and Meade Treadwell, our Lieutenant Governor, and Meade Treadwell has gotten Alaska and gotten Washington much more involved in things at the far north. And they are things, there's a council on the north. Is that the name of the correct name?
There's the Arctic Council.
Arctic Council,
Mhm,
and that's international.
Mhm.
There are a lot of countries that border on the Arctic Ocean in the far north. Russia, Canada, Greenland, parts of Scandinavia, Alaska. So there's a lot of people saying, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine, and we want to be able to develop it carefully,
Responsibly.
But it's sometimes you get so frustrated because we live in this age of climate change, and God only knows where it's going to go and what's happening. I look at the lower 48 all winter long, and I go, somebody said we're moving to Wisconsin. I said, why? You want to stay warmer in the winter, just stay in Nome, because that's what this what do they call it? The polar vortex.
Yeah.
The polar vortex. They're colder in Phoenix than we are in some places in Alaska. But you don't want it to become a political grab bag.
No, you want to work together.
It has to. And we, as a nation, have been a little dragging our feet, big time.
Yeah, so anytime that we can advocate our issues and provide information so that folks that are making decisions, let them know that what the decisions they make will directly affect us because we live here.
That's right.
So,
But it also affects the rest of the world.
yes, it's
It
international.
really does. There's also another entity up there, one that we hosted a convention in 1995 called ICC, Inuit Circumpolar Conference. And when I lived up in Barrow, they had a meeting there years and years and years ago. And then I was here when I first, and I've been here for a few years, but we did it here.
Yes.
And there were like 1,500, maybe more, delegates from
All over.
And primarily indigenous people.
Yes.
Some politicians, but the
Speakers.
indigenous people. Today, that ICC has grown and matured into a lot more powerful voice.
It's a great group.
They are a great
It's a
group.
great group.
I mean, it used to be mostly about art, culture. What it's about, that still God knows, certainly. But
Right.
there's husbandry involved in it.
Food security, is a major concern for the indigenous folks here, and that's probably one of their top priorities. They continue to do food security workshops, gathering information and data, especially to report to the different Arctic Council committees. So they are very engaged, have amazing information, and as amazing resource.
But Must be interesting to go to some of those meetings.
It is.
I'll
It
bet.
is fascinating.
There's the president, I'm trying to remember, the president of ICC, Josie knows him real well. I can't remember.
Right now?
Yeah.
For Alaska?
Yeah.
Jimmy Stotts?
Oh, is he? I didn't realize. Oh, that's new.
For
Is he
Alaska?
really?
Mhm.
Golly, good job, Jimmy. I love it. And
Yeah.
that's where we should be. We should have folks like that in there, involved, talking on behalf of not just Alaska and the United States, but certainly our people.
And Vera is the
Yes.
second vice. I believe that's her title.
How big a council is that? If every delegates, is it like?
I know for Alaska, there's Barrow, Kotzebue, Nome, and the Bethel region, and they're a permanent participant to the Arctic Council, along with the International Aleut group. So there's very well-rounded representation, ICC to the Arctic Council.
Right. What did you just say? Something that prompted. I had a question. You got the Council of the North, Arctic Council, and then is there a second? Mead is on what?
He used to be the chair of the Arctic Research Commission.
Arctic Research.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're the ones that set policy for
right.
Research in the Arctic, the 5-year plan.
Right. Right. And it was a couple of meetings ago, it might be 4 years, that the federal government sent the highest ranking official they've ever sent to it. I can't remember if it was ICC or to.
It was in New Greenland, and it was the.
They sent Hillary Clinton.
Yes, to sign the search and rescue agreement.
Huh. You know what? In my tour, I get interesting questions. So this show, by the way, this isn't a steel trap. This is not a steel trap. So sometimes I'll get on the things and wander, but I tell my clients on a tour, it's hang with me. It's like stream of consciousness. I'll hopefully bring it all to a thing. Because there's this, the aspects. I'm very concerned for these cultural aspects. And I don't know. Tell people sometimes, how do you address that?
Well, it's great group like Queric or Native Corporation, our village corporations, our tribes, the folks that live here in the coastal areas. Our culture and subsistence tie in together. Our hunting and fishing is our culture. That's who we are. That's what we are, and we respect the animals, respect the land, work together for management issues, stay very engaged in different forms of government, international, state, local. And so it's very important for us. Our culture and our values and our subsistence way of life all tie in together.
And at the same time, trying to be involved with some development of different things.
Yes.
The Seward Peninsula, we have gold, have some gold.
Minerals.
We got some other minerals. We got some of those rare earth minerals. I find them totally fascinating. And last year or 2 years ago, that Canadian group up by Salmon Lake, just in the graphite.
Resource one, yes.
Is that going to go?
I spoke with them, the firm, a couple weeks ago, and they're still conducting drill studies. And so they'll do more of that this year, and then they'll bring it back forth to the people that they need to talk to see what the next step is.
Check this out. Graphite. I thought, okay, the lead in your pencil is graphite. Cell phones. Big time.
It's all
carbon fibers. Things they now make most of your car is got graphite.
That would be a great opportunity, and it's a clean mining process.
Yes, it's much cleaner than, I hate to say it, sorry guys, it's much cleaner than gold or iron.
Depends on what you use.
Well, that's true.
But so that's exciting. We continue to have discussions with them.
And did I hear right? I think it's the largest deposit in the world of graphite. Yeah. In China, kind of has the market on rare earth minerals and stuff. We have a lot of those.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we have a lot of those rare earth minerals. It's a kind of they are organized to produce more centrally, I guess, or get it so they can export those rare earth minerals.
I think this is why it's important for the deep draft port system, because you need a deep draft port to be able to export your resources out. And I know that Bering Straits Native Corporation has been very engaged in the process, because they also want a portion of that at Port Clarence under a land selection. So they've been very engaged, and they've been a pleasure to work with.
And for those of you who may not know, Point Clarence is just outside of Teller, and it is a deep water port. It has a spit of land that comes way out further south, and it ends, and until about 3 years ago, had the Loran Tower.
Yes, Coast Guard Loran Station.
What is it?
Coast Guard
Loran Station, 1,600 or 1,500 foot tower. Check it out, with guy wires almost as wide as the island, and it went down in a day.
Yeah.
It went down in a day because now they use GPS, it's all satellites. But there's a tiny bit of existing infrastructure there to get the start, but right between that and the mainland to the north is about, I don't know, is it 5 miles? Is it wide, that wide? But it's deep water, it's like 80, 90, 100 feet.
At least
or is it more?
40 feet, 50 feet. It's a natural deep draft, natural port, place of refuge, and they've been using it for years. The whaling.
Yeah. Back in the sailing boat days, they'd come in there and just get out of the storms.
Yeah.
And that's going to have to happen.
Oh yes, you need protection.
If there's going to be somebody coming down the pike, and there's going to be a weird weather anomaly, and they are going to have to get the heck off the
water,
the Bering Sea, get off the water, and get into some protected area. I think this whole thing is just so fascinating.
It is. It's exciting times for us.
It is. It's a very exciting time. And from our point of view, from a business point of view, from an economic point of view, Chamber of Commerce point of view, there are going to be great opportunities. There will be great opportunities, and I think and you mentioned our population's up at 150. It's about 3,500 now. We're 36.
And then in the summer, with the filming of the Discovery Channel's filming and the different activities that happen with the film crews in town.
That's where we're going next. Now, we are in the midst of a second gold rush. And that's a true statement. Nome is really here as a result of the discovery of gold back in the Anvil Mountain in 1898. And the word got out, and our population in 1899 went from about 30 to about 30,000 in about 6 or 8 weeks because of the ocean. And they could sail right here, and then we had the stampeders that came in overland. Of course, the Eskimo people, the Inupiaq people, were here a lot longer before that.
Right.
But there wasn't a settlement, but not, it wasn't an area where people didn't summer here as much as they did at Nook.
Right.
On the other side of Cape Nome. We got nice river, Snake River. Yeah, very nice river.
The house pit that was found. The house pit.
Yes, having the sand spit.
A couple 100 years old.
Right. When they were doing the revamping the port and widening and making the channel. Remember the jetty?
Oh yes, I remember that.
I'm glad it's gone, but I liked the look of it. It was cool. But
it was challenging coming in when it was rough weather.
Oh yeah, those waves.
Making that tight corner.
And it was like a right-hand turn. I mean, a left-hand turn. It was like 90 degrees. So now we got this second gold rush.
Yes, we do.
And I get asked all the time, what's it like? What's it like? And from my point of view as a tour guide, to me, it's like history repeating itself in many ways. The guy I picked up from the airport at 64 years old, he left Tampa and his family to come up here to seek his fortune, and he had been hooked up with some guy who supposedly had a dredge. The guy had never been heard of. So I give it's a guy, and I said, 60, at the time my age, and I said, what the heck, excuse me, how much money do you have in your pocket? He said, I've got about $100. I said, how do you expect to live? My point being that the same mistakes that were made not mistakes, the same things people did 100 years ago.
Right. Still happening.
A lot of them.
Yeah, got to be prepared. You need to know you need to know what industry you're in. It's hard work. It's long hours. Our weather is very incremental. It's dangerous, very dangerous, and you know, the housing market here is tight, so you really need to do your homework and make sure you have at least a round-trip ticket back home.
Yep.
But it's meeting, you know, a whole bunch of different interesting people, you know, coming up here. I just think it's interesting times, and that shows, you know, that resource is still out in the ocean.
Yes. And that's what's also interesting. It's not just the guy that comes up with a gold pan or a dredge, a little 8-inch dredge or whatever. These are big companies. Some of these are really big companies. South Africa,
Armor,
big, you know, Armor that are big, and they have investments. And the oil leases, and last year or the year before in April when they had that big lease sale.
Mineral leases?
Yeah, the mineral leases off here, which I want to compliment. I don't know the mayor who was when they did it, but I think it's fabulous we have a recreational mining area. Yeah. Only place in the United States and maybe even the world that we have this area that is for miners. And there's a fee for your dredge, there's a fee for stuff, and you can't do it anywhere but then that recreation
you have to get a permit
area.
Through the
You got to get a permit.
DNR.
That's right, but you can do it. You got to get, that's right, they've got like Bob Hafner, he's got to get a.
Yep, you have to get a permit.
He's got to get a permit from DNR.
You have to register, you have to have your number, your vessel has to have your permit number identified. And
the Coast Guard got involved last year, and they kind of, we had to tighten up the regulations.
Yeah.
Safety.
It's for safety.
Yeah.
It's you want to have a safe, successful season.
Yeah. You know, I mean, you don't want to be, you know, and we've had a couple of people die, but you know what? God rest their souls. A lot of them were guys that maybe shouldn't have been doing. They were maybe a little out long in the tooth.
It's a dangerous industry.
Because
you need to know what you're doing.
It's a tremendous amount of work. You know, and if you're as old as I am, I'd be a fool. I mean, I wouldn't do it anyway because I ain't got cold fever. You know? I tell my clients, I said, there are 2 ways to get gold when we're down on the beach now with one of the cruise ships. And I tell them, well, you know, 2 ways to get gold. You can do what we just did and what we're doing this morning, or you can go to Tiffany's and buy it.
Right.
And I kind of am, call me a cat, I'm going to Tiffany's. Hello, Seth.
We have a whole number of conferences going on this year here in Nome. The Democratic Convention is going to be here. We have the North Pacific Fishery Council coming back, and then we have the Alaska Municipal Leagues.
They're going to be here this year?
In August. And
it's a big group?
Yep, about 100. So
they're so much fun.
It's going to be a very busy time here within the city of Nome with conferences.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that's something that we have, I remember being on, you know, I'm going to brag on our chamber for just a second because, and it's not just the chamber alone, but we are able to handle these big meetings and convention, and everybody for years and years that's sitting at this very table, Tony Cryer, you know, all of these guys who would say, we need to get meetings and we need to get more conventions. Well, now we are.
Yes.
And it's very exciting, and it's good for our economy. And again, it too is a part of, you know, this new interest or continued new interest in the far north and what's happening here. And then to the North Pacific fisheries, I've told them this too, that, you know, you came to the belly of the beast. I admire them for having their meeting here in the land of, you know, the Inupiaq and the commercial fishermen and NSEDC.
Subsistence, sports. Yeah, it's all right there.
And it's all kind of tied together. It's all kind of tied together.
Yeah. The other opportunity we have once the United States takes chairmanship of the Arctic Council, the idea is to have all the meetings in the state of Alaska, and the State Department came and visited Nome to look to see if they could have some of the community, smaller committee meetings here in Nome. So we're excited about that when the chairmanship.
When do we get that?
2015.
Next year.
Yes.
Jamming. Yeah. Oh boy. Thank you, good Lord. Let me hang on till then. Hello, Central. And onto, you know, you could go on about climate change, you could go on about the gold rush, which I did want to finish because it's brought a lot to the community.
It has.
There's some problems here and there.
But with industry, with a growth like that, you have both a good and a bad, and, you know, handle the issues the best that we can with the resources that we have.
I think we do pretty well. You know, everyone said, well, you know, we got bars on Front Street, and that can, you know, make life a little interesting and spicy.
But we also have a lot of other things to do.
I know. I didn't write the book, but I am right with you. We've got Iditarod coming up now. Our Arts Council's got, you know, 2 or 3 things going on during Iditarod, and that focus used to be a lot more on the bars than it is today. And I know
there's so much to do.
Yeah, of craft shows and all of that. The art show, a juried art show, ice sculpting, sure.
The Ice Classic.
The Ice Classic, the Bering Sea Ice Classic, 18 holes of golf, about 1.5 feet from where I am, out on the frozen Bering Ocean. It's too cool for words. What was his name? Elliot Staples. Elliot Staples, the Bering Sea, and that was a big deal. That was Iditarod in Nome. I tell my clients it's like Mardi Gras with dogs.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. And when I see those mushers come in, it's like quintessential Alaska.
Those are some tough people. They're just no sleep through different types of weather, and the athletes, the dogs, they're just, it's an amazing event.
It's beautiful.
A statewide event.
I got into a conversation with somebody from Fairbanks about the differences in the Yukon Quest and the Iditarod. And it wasn't an argument, it was a friendly after the days of meetings. So we were sitting around convention, and he said, well, yeah, but you know, it's actually, Quest is longer than the Iditarod. And I said, listen, doing this and blah, 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 that and this and that. And I said, well, let me tell you a couple of things. First of all, Yukon Quest is a race, designed as a race and all of that. I think the beauty of Iditarod is what it commemorates.
Yes.
It was a humanitarian.
1925.
The bringing of diphtheria serum to Nome. It was successful. We didn't have an epidemic. 2 people, I think, died of diphtheria.
And that was amazing feat.
And it could be several hundred. Could easily have died. Diphtheria, you know, goes quickly and it spreads, and it's virulent. It's a virulent thing. Yeah. Which leads to kind of health. And in the last 5 years, Norton Sound Health Corporation opened a new hospital.
It's gorgeous, high tech.
Oh, beautiful! The floors are like the floors at Ted Stevens International. It's beautiful marble floors. I love them. They're absolutely gorgeous, and it's a wonderful facility.
It's a great facility.
People get say, well, I drive with my clients, and I pointed out the fact that it's built up on stilts because of the permafrost. Where if you're not from Nome, we're about 80% of the land in and around Nome is permafrost, but that too is changing because of climate change. Here's one for a sidebar, I think they call them. A concern about global climate change as far as tundra is concerned is the fact that tundra holds in check vast amounts of methane. And if you melt the permafrost, you re-release vast amounts of methane into the atmosphere, methane being the most, of all of the greenhouse gases, the one that is, you know, most blamed for stuff. Yeah. So it's, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on. But with the hospital,
I'm thinking it's probably one of the tallest buildings in Northwest Alaska.
Oh, I'm sure it must be. It's got an elevator. Well, we got a post office that's got an elevator too, but not like, this is a nice elevator. It has a voice. You're on the 3rd floor. But it's beautiful. And they have Kionic Care, the geriatric, yep, I'm on the list.
My mom lives in there. So.
Does she?
Yep, it's an awesome place.
Yo, it's beautiful. And Caroline Reeder's in there now. I remember going to see Job Kokachurek when he was there. I can shut my eyes and I can hear Job's voice. Deep, beautiful, rich voice. Yeah. So the hospital, you know, I tell my clients too that Nome is not, its economy is not driven by gold. The economy of this city is driven by the fact that we're a hub for so many different communities on the Seward Peninsula.
Different government services.
Local, hospital, transportation, Alaska Airlines, our link to the outside, several smaller feeder airlines. Bering Air goes to Russia. I've got the Heritage Expeditions, a group I work with out of New Zealand, has added a trip, so there are 6 trips instead of 5. And perfect. That's when we're kind of getting into this tourism thing.
It's nice that we're a port of entry.
We are. That's right. We have a customs official.
It really helps.
That's true. I was talking with him, Mr. Robinson. I was talking to him the other day. He said kids and youth basketball. So I was visiting with him about, and his job's just going to get busier and busier and busier, and it's already kind of busy.
Right.
But with, you
have kiteboarders, jet skiers, kayakers. Yeah, it's busy between the straits.
During the course of my having this show in there, I'll bet you I've interviewed 20 different expeditions.
That's amazing.
That want to go across the Bering Strait.
Yeah, we get phone calls, and who to contact, and
yeah, we had the Frenchman, the paraplegic, with no arms and no legs, who swam from little to big Diomede. People could cross-country ski across it. Snowmobile. Tried to. Yeah, out of the 20, I think only 1 or 2 made it. And then some of these, remember the one that had the corkscrew? It was down at the port. They had these like corkscrews on a big pontoon, and rang, and it was kind of supposed
biofuels.
Yeah,
they're supporting advocating biofuels.
Yeah, but they didn't do. They got 100 feet offshore or something, and got hung up in the ice, and it tore up. Yeah, people don't have a respect
for the ice ridges.
For the ice
movement.
Can be a tough master.
Dynamic.
It is. It is dynamic. I watched today that when I went to bed, you couldn't see open water. I haven't even seen for several weeks, although this is the last couple of years, you see it here and there. Today it was water. It's like big time. I came in from icy view and I could see the ice pack beyond.
Yeah.
When you were a kid, did you grow up in Nome?
Yes, born and raised.
So you went to the school, the red school, on Centennial Square.
Yep.
That must have been cool.
It was fun.
What year did you graduate, if I may ask?
84.
84. Oh, God, you're young. I graduated from high school in 1963. But back to this something. So for jury, we have a judge. We have a year-round judge seated. So we have a court system that's that's viable all year round. Native organizations, Bering Straits Regional, is headquartered here. It's headquartered here. The Bering Straits School District, which is huge, is in Unalakleet, down the road. But it's with transportation, both the port and the airport. What about a port authority? Somebody asked me that once, and I said, New York has a port authority in New Jersey. They get
the city of Nome. We have the Port Commission, and they have been successfully managing and operating and making recommendations, policy recommendations to the council for years. A port authority is something that the city, any city government can look at. It's already on the books and statute if a community wanted to do that. I think we need further discussion on that. I wouldn't see. We need to look at it further and look at how it would play out, because right now I believe the Port Commission is doing they're doing a great job.
Well, I know they're doing a great job, but if we get a deep water port and you get all of this stuff, and then there might be need for something a little more enlarged. And I don't know if I'll be around to see it.
I hope so.
And I don't mean moving. I don't think I'll be pushing up the daisies or whatever they say. But I suspect it's going to have all of this stuff is going to have a profound effect on Nome and the people of Nome.
Yes.
So, God, I'm so glad you're here, because I'm beginning to remember things that that have been going on, and you need to kind of get the big categories, the climate change and the gold and all of those, and energy certainly, and growth in the future. What was the population when you were in high school? Any idea?
I think, back then there was 3 mining companies. There was, besides the gold company, there was, the Bema was here at one time too. There was Aspen. So it was a little larger in the summer, definitely. I can't remember what it was, but there was always a lot more people, more mining folks came in seasonally.
Well, that's kind of the BEMA. I remember, for those of you who are new to Nome or don't remember, the BEMA, owned by a company called West Gold, anchored at our causeway before the port entry change and all of that, and huge, 12 stories high, I think 700 feet long. It was an immense dredge.
It was huge.
What?
It was huge.
Oh, it was huge. And they would be offshore dredging, and then they'd park it for the winter and then come back. That was a big piece of machinery.
Yeah.
And today we've got lots of little machines and some big ones. And those ratchet up platforms. I like those. I like those.
That's interesting.
If I were to ask you, what do you think is the biggest change in Nome since you took office? And you can brag. I don't absolutely.
I think that we've been successful in partnering, like leveraging our funds, working together, building up our infrastructure. Besides the port and harbor, we've got a new public safety building. We're looking at a new Richard Foster museum, which will hold the museum, the cultural center, and the library. I'm on the commission. Yeah. So a lot of infrastructure and a lot of opportunities addressing energy, moving forward instead of waiting for something to happen, that we're moving forward and doing something to happen. And you have to thank the citizens of Nome for being active and participating and coming up with ideas. It's very important.
Well, we're lucky. That's we're lucky, and then maybe our people are smart. Maybe our people are smart, and that's wonderful. But you're right. There has been a fair amount of change, and I think most of it positive. You get problems here and there.
Yeah, but we address them as a community.
That's right. We had there was a big fear when all with the reality shows. Okay. Yeah. Good news, bad news. Hello Central. There are two. Bering Sea Gold, Under the Ice, Outdoor Channel did one. Then there was the thing about the Bartholomew girls up by Teller.
And then the troopers also every once in a while.
Yeah. So. And then we had a film crew in yesterday.
Right.
That's working on, but it's not the gold thing, thank God. It's more about culture.
Good.
It's about 5 kids from different villages that get together and they meet and they kind of talk about their dreams and what they want to do in life. And it's a guy from Kotzebue that's doing it. I can't remember his name. I just worked with them. But, how will it go for them?
Right.
All of those. And very, very interesting stuff. And you get a lot, I think over the last number of years, we've gotten a lot more interest. Not the interest has always been there, but a way of exposure. Because of the reality shows, yes. and a kind of a demand for more information about what else is going on. It's not just in Nome. We got there's that gold. What is it? The gold rush or whatever they call it. The Fairbanks operation. Half of it's in Fairbanks and half of it's in Guyana or someplace in South America.
Yeah.
And these guys are famous. They become stars.
Yeah.
I know a couple of guys that still want to be stars. Get me? I'm going to be on the show.
Good for them.
Good for them.
Good for them.
Whatever it takes. We have talked for almost an hour.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. And good luck with the continuing of Hello Central.
Well, my pleasure, and you are always a welcome guest.
Thank you.
My guest, and I didn't introduce her. I did it the first of the show, but I should have reintroduced her. Is the mayor of Nome, 6 terms, in her 11th year as mayor of Nome, and I can say a damn good mayor. She's cool.
Thank you.
She's cool. And she doesn't look bad either, and that doesn't hurt. Hello Central. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You are my hero.
Thank you.
Thank you. You are my hero.
Folks like you, that's a great place to live.
It is a great place to live.
It is.
Because what do they say? We'll look into the camera. There's no place like Nome. There's no place like Nome. I mean, Madison Avenue, eat your heart out. But I do thank you very much. And I'm just going to close out of this first show by thanking Denise, certainly. I want to thank GCI. GCI is, of course, our cable handler that does that. They also do cell phones. They do all sorts of things. And now we have fiber optics in Nome, so you don't have to wait 30 minutes to get something to download on your computer. It's just a boom, and it's there. It's very cool. And I'll be back every week, Wednesdays at 7:30, and look forward to your continued reestablishing a rapport with my audience here in Nome. We will have, I'm going to have a meeting here, a show next week maybe, with several small business owners, little businesses, coffee shop type things. Erin from Bearing CT. I'm hoping to have Sandra Morgan with her. You know, what is it like to be in business in Nome, Alaska? Is it particularly hard? I'm a small business. My business is 21 years old.
Perfect.
21 years of doing tours. Hello, Central. But I want to thank you all for tuning in. Invite you to tune in again. I love this town. I love the people in it. We're interesting, we're vital, and it's very cool. The world is not passing us by at all. We're right in the floor of it, and thank you, Mayor Denise Michels, for doing that.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll bid you a fond adieu, and see you next time on Hello Central, and we'll be live from Front Street. Thanks so much.